Hey there, Exiles. It's Brachiosaurus here. I just wanted to talk about the Eviscerate Elementalist build that I've been playing. It's kind of a new build in Path of Exile 3.26 Secrets of the Atlas expansion, and there aren't too many videos on it, so I figured I'd go over what I've been doing, where it's going, and a few of the variants and options. Right now I'm playing a Blackflame variant, we'll get to that later, but just keep in mind while I'm explaining the basic fire version first, that there might be a few differences here and there. Elementalist got some good buffs in 3.26, improving her tankiness, but her ignites lost a bit of their high-end damage. This has led to some searching for skills to provide big ignites, and Eviscerate has emerged as one of the contenders. Let's have a look at it. Eviscerate is a retaliation skill, so you cannot use it until you get attacked by an enemy and block a hit. It cannot be evaded, so we don't need to worry about accuracy, which is great for us as an Elementalist. Just going to move it out. It has a very long range of about 10 meters. That's boosted by our area of effect. For reference, the range to the edge of the screen over here and over here is about 8.5 meters, so it has off-screen range. It has a width of 3.2 meters with 2 waves that it makes, so you get some good coverage. Some cooldown recovery rate from quality. It does have a cooldown time of 3 seconds, so that helps a bit, and it causes bleeding. The big other thing is up at the top, we see there's a 1345% damage multiplier. So any of our base damage gets multiplied up 1300 times over when we make our retaliation attacks. To get our base damage, we use the Ephemeral Edge Sword. This gives us a little bit of base lightning damage, and then the last line here, attacks with this weapon have added maximum lightning damage equal to 15% of the player's max energy shield. So basically, by stacking energy shield, we get a nice big health pool. This Ephemeral Edge converts that energy shield into flat damage, and the Eviscerate multiplies that damage up many times over to give us a big base for our ignites. Overall, the build has pretty good clear with off-screen range and 2 types of proliferation. It's very tanky and resilient against physical hits. It has a lot of recovery built in with Aegis Aurora and Divine Shield. It's pretty easy to gear with 4 rares and the rest all uniques, and it does not require a mage blood, so it's fairly cheap to gear. On the downside, it caps off at, only, in quotation marks, 35 million damage. That's enough for most content in the game, including Ubers, but it's going to feel kind of bad when you're doing super juicy content, like Gigantic Exiles, or what's the other thing? Pilfering bosses who are full of div cards. The damage is not on demand, so it can feel a little bit clunky when you're waiting to be attacked by an enemy and waiting to make that block, especially against kind of straggling one-off enemies. And the tankiness is not epic immortal style tankiness. You can die. I mostly die to drowning orbs because I'm bad, but your mileage will vary. It's also not an ideal starter or solo self-found build because of all the different uniques required, especially the shield and the Ephemeral Edge are pretty rare. But yeah, at this point in the league, it's worth trying, and I think it's pretty interesting. For gem links, we've got Eviscerate as our main. Volatility is our first damage link. It gives us a higher maximum attack damage, but lowers our minimum attack damage. Because the range on our damage is lightning based, it's very, very high range. You can see on the tooltip here, I go from 32 to 68,000 lightning damage. So we're mostly concerned about boosting up our high end and trying to hit a high lightning damage hit so that we get a big ignite. If we get a low hit, it kind of doesn't matter. It's going to feel bad either way, with or without volatility. We have 3 kind of generic damage links coming up next. We have elemental damage with attacks, support. This gives us more damage and immunity to reflected damage with our Eviscerate. We get Awakened Deadly Ailments, which gives us more ailment damage and less damage with our hits. We don't really care about our hits, we're only scaling the ignite. And we get Awakened Unbound Ailments, which again It gives us more damage with ailments and more effect of our non-damaging ailments, which basically means our shock. For our last link, there's a few options. Cruelty is a good budget or starting off option. It gives us a buff to our damage over time based on the damage we hit with. Awakened burning damage with support will overtake it in terms of damage, and it is more consistent damage with the boost to our burning damage. And then for maps where it's, a lot of packs, a lot of pack size, and you want to be attacking more often, it's nice to use the Expert Retaliation support, which gives us 78% more cooldown recovery rate, so that we just get more Eviscerates off. For support skills, we use Smite here to give us added lightning damage after we attack with it. You can see 13 to 239 added lightning damage, and that's linked to Combustion, which reduces enemies' fire resistance to make us deal a little bit more damage. We have a Arcanist brand set up in our gloves. So Arcanist brand is a spell we cast which attaches to the enemy, and then the spells linked to it will be cast automatically by the brand. So we use that to apply our curses and our flame surge. It's worth noting you should put your curses in the links first, kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want your curses to be number 2 and 3 linked to it, and your flame surge linked last. That way your curses will be cast by the Arcanist brand first as it rotates through all the skills available to it. Don't skip on the flame surge. You can see the last line there is that it applies burning ground that deals 25% of our Ignite's fire damage, so it's like getting 25% more damage against our enemies. We use 4 golems in this build. You can see them running around. I've got a stone golem to give us regeneration and defenses. Defenses include both energy shield and armor, so whenever we can buff that, it's really valuable to our build. Flame golem gives us damage and area of effect. Chaos golem gives us damage over time multiplier. The chaos resistance doesn't matter because we're running CI. And then my lightning golem is over here now. That gives us more attack and cast speed, which just feels good, and it gives us some mana regen to help offset the effect of our tincture. We do use a tincture. Look for a high roll of elemental damage with attacks, so I've got a 99 here, and then look for a tier 1 suffix with damage over time multiplier for attacks, and then any prefix that increases the effect. I've got a basic increased effect, and there's another one that increases the effect even more, but has a downside of increasing the mana burns effect. We use some auras. I've got them in my helmet. So we have Discipline, which gives us more energy shield. Tempest Shield, which gives us 25% more spell block and immunity to shock. And then you want to fit in Malevolence, which gives more damage over time, and some skill effect duration. And Determination, which gives us flat armor and more armor as well. One of those can fit in here, and one of those can fit in on our Mercenary. You do need an Enlightened support to be able to fit all of those in. We do use some movement skills as well. I've got a shield charge to help move around between packs. That's linked with combustion as well. And then I've also got a flame dash. We've got a cast when damage taken set up, so cast when damage taken, Molten Shell. Molten Shell is kind of the best option to use for cast when damage taken because it gives us a buff based on our armor, and our armor is very high. Lastly, if you can fit it in, Enduring Cry is a really great option. It taunts enemies so that they attack us instead of attacking our golems and our mercenary, so that helps us get a few more hits in against us, which we can block and then eviscerate against. It also gives us endurance charges to help with our tankiness, and gives our golems a little bit of health recovery to help keep them alive. For the skill tree, the basic idea is to leave the Elementalist starting point coming up this way, and then you want to get to the outside ring. I've gone around this way, but another option is to go out here and up through that way. It's 3 points either way, so it doesn't make a huge difference, But if you are putting a gem in here that buffs those points, like a Light of Meaning, then it's better to go this way. Then we want to head around the outside to go get Chaos Inoculation over here. So we're immune to Chaos damage, and we don't have to worry about Chaos resistance or damage ever. Then we want to head all the way around, pathing all the way down to this Retaliation wheel that has Cruel Retort. Cruel Retort is pretty cool. It means every 4th retaliation skill that we use will always critically strike. So that lets us add in Elemental Overlord, so that if we've dealt a critical strike recently, I guess it's double recently, because recent is 4 and Elemental Overlord is 8 seconds, but within the last 8 seconds, our ailments deal 40% more elemental damage. So that's pretty great to have. It's 40% more damage, basically. Aside from that, we just pick up useful things for our build all the way along the way. So there's a good aura effect wheel over here with influence, and the aura effect on us is stronger mastery. We get our 4th golem and some golem effect right here. We get some energy shield and the mastery for energy shield being based on our stun threshold here. Very important to get that on a CI build, otherwise it will just be stunned constantly because your stun threshold will be 1. Based on your life only. We pick up the damage over time multiplier from Acrimony right here. Then we can get some spell block from the Arcane Guarding Wheel here. Mystic Bulwark if you go over this way. Or you can come down here and get Safeguard, which has the added benefit of giving us 3% maximum chance to block, so we can block even more, going from 75 up to 78. There's some good increased damage here, increasing the lightning damage that we deal with our attack, and that forms the basis of our ignite. And then over here with fire damage over time multiplier, and then over on the far left side, the fire damage over time multiplier here. Make sure you grab Zealot's Oath as you're passing by so that our life regen is applied to our energy shield. It's right there for 1 point, gives us some regen. Nice to have. Down here we want to pick up both the Faith and Steel and the Sanctum of Thought hybrid armor NES wheels. Obviously we're scaling both armor and energy shield, so those boost up both of our defenses. Especially notable is this mastery here for 100% increased armor NES from our body armor, as long as our helmet, gloves, and boots all have armor and energy shield on them. So it's worth noting that only the gloves, boots, and helmet have to be hybrid. The body armor can be an ES only piece and it'll still get doubled, so that's pretty great. The other mastery point, you can apply kind of anything you want. I used to be running 20% reduced extra damage from crits to lower criticals down to 50% combined with the base there. But I've recently switched over to recover energy shield when I take physical damage, which is very similar to Divine Shield over here. It's just more recovery to keep us topped off. There's 50% increased elemental damage over here for only 4 points. Pretty good, make sure you get it. And then as we go all the way down, there's 2 wheels for attack block here with Aggressive Bastion and As the Mountain. As the Mountain gives us some max chance to block attack damage, just like Safeguard. So well worth picking up. After you've grabbed those, come down and get this Retaliation Wheel for increased damage with our Retaliation skills, and then the Cruel Retort for the criticals. Make sure you pick up the increased duration with ailments inflicted by Retaliation skills to make your ignites last longer. While you're leveling up, there's another Retaliation Wheel over here, which you can get for Careful Counterattack. It's much closer and easier to get, but it's not really useful overall, so make sure you replace it. Then just fill in the rest with jewels and endurance charges and other useful things like that. I've got 2 cluster jewels in my setup right now. Megalomaniac setup, which is pretty effective with all 3 nodes overall. And then I've got a few points over here for extra energy shield, which I'm going to respec out of soon enough. There are 2 runes that are worthwhile getting to. So Runegraft of the Fortress right here gives us 40% increased global defenses. Again, That's 40% more energy shield and 40% increased energy shield and armor. Pretty great. And then the Runegraft of the Warp, useful on most builds, but makes our buffs expire on us slower, so things like shrines last longer, and then debuffs expire on us faster, so all of the things in T16.5 and T17 maps that slow you down and are generally nasty wear off sooner. So really nice to have. For your Ascendancy, as you're leveling up, you're going to grab Leech of the Primordial first. That lets you have 3 golems, and then soon enough you'll get Golem Commander to have a 4th. That gives you just a huge amount of quality of life and general power while you're leveling up. Next up, grab Shaper of Flames so that your hits always ignite, and you can start scaling your ignite damage then. Also note that the last effect here, enemies ignited by you, have some of their damage converted to fire. Just means that 30% of their damage disappears basically, because our fire resistance is 75, so we resist 3/4 of that damage, so it's nice that 30% of their fizz just disappears. Next up, grab Shaper of Storms. Your hits always shock. You have a good minimum shock effect at 25% instead of the 10 by default, and then actually, I'm not sure if there's a default, but you get a good minimum shock effect. And then all damage can shock, so all damage contributes to our shocks. You see we've got a bit of fire, a bit of cold, a bit of chaos. Everything's contributing. And then in the standard fire version, you're going to come over here to Mastermind of Discord for your 4th Ascendancy point. This makes your exposures lower enemy resistances even more. So your basic exposure is going to do 12, maybe 13, maybe 15% effect, and this is going to add an extra 25% reduction to enemy resistances. For jewels, I've got a fire damage cluster up here. Elemental damage clusters are pretty similar and have a lot of the same nodes. Just look for things like Sadist, so damage if you've ignited or shocked recently. Widespread Destruction is just increased elemental damage, that's useful for us. Prismatic Heart, again, 30% increased damage, that'd be great, but I'm a bit starved on points. I have a shield cluster down here to have a look at too. The main thing to consider is with the shield clusters, the only suffix notable that's interesting to us is Heavy Hitter. That's because Heavy Hitter is the only one of the 3 suffix notables that has increased damage with ailments from our attack skills. The other ones are attack damage only, and we're not using the attack or hit portion of our damage. You can find a lot of useful jewels as well. Replica Reckless Defense is a good option once you can deal with the downsides of it. So once you have elemental immunity, it can have up to 6% each of block and spell block. I'm using a Storm Shroud setup with shock and elemental avoidance on my boots as well as on one of my other jewels. So I have an Abyss Jewel that has it. And is loaded up with just some other general damage to boost my sword attacks. Over here, I have a Corrupted Blood immunity jewel, which has just some kind of basic increased damage prefixes, and then double dipping on a standard and fire damage over time multiplier. Down here, I had a similar one with double block prefixes, and then double damage over time multiplier suffixes. And then lastly, once you have your Malevolence set up, make sure you get a Watcher's Eye that has the increased damage over time multiplier while affected by Malevolence. This 22% is one of the biggest sources of dot multiplier. You can see like Acrimony has 15, and then most of the other notables on the wheel, on the skill tree, have 10 over there, 12 over there, and then our jewels have kind of like 11-ish, right? 10, 11, 10 there, and 11 from there. So very big source of damage over time multiplier. The Megalomaniac just has Burning Bright that we've already seen for, or no, we haven't seen it, but that's a fire notable on Cluster Jewels, and then it has Veteran Defender for increased stats and increased defenses from our shield, and another Prodigious Defense to give us some block and attack damage. The attack damage, again, not being super helpful. Okay, let's go over the gear. So we've already talked about the Ephemeral Edge. Our shield is the Aegis Aurora shield. You can see the second last line is kind of the key here. Recover energy shield equal to 2% of our armor when you block. So looking at our defenses, I've got a pretty high 46,000 armor. So 2% of that is a pretty nice amount, about 900 energy shield recovered every time I block. Because we've got maxed out attack and spell block, we are blocking quite often and getting a lot of recovery from that. Aside from that, it just has a decent amount of armor and energy shield. I got this one because it's very high rolled and it just happened to have the Determination skill. Otherwise I'd run Determination in my last slot here and move my Lightning Golem somewhere else. Next up, we use the Whispers of Infinity Sea Glass Amulet. That's the popular new amulet from this league, from the new bosses. It gives us a big flat boost to our energy shield, and it also gives us the last line there, skills cost energy shield instead of mana or life. So we don't have to worry about mana and mana regeneration anymore, aside from running our tincture. It does give us some chaos damage based on our mana too, so that's why I have some chaos damage on my attacks over there. Next up, we'll talk about the rings. So you always want to run a Barracks Respite. This ring gives us some damage to our attacks, increased lightning damage, and most importantly, when you kill an ignited enemy, inflict an equivalent ignite on each nearby enemy. So whenever enemies die, they leave behind bodies that are burning with the ignites that killed them basically, and then other enemies who wander by will get ignited and also burn down and burn to death. So it helps clean up packs and especially to clean up stragglers. In the fire damage version, we want to run a, I'm just going to unequip this, we want to run a Polaric Devastation ring. So the main effect here is when it's in the left ring slot, covers enemies in ash for 5 seconds when we ignite them. So just pressing Alt and looking at what that does, it slows them down, which is meh, and it gives us 20% increased fire damage taken against them. So it just makes our fire damage and our ignites more effective against them. For our belt, as I said, we don't want to use Mage Blood. We use this unique Diadian Dawn Heavy Belt instead. It has some resistances, and most importantly, it has ignites. We inflict, deal damage 35% faster. I've qualityed it up, so it's now 42. Faster damage just boosts our ignite damage up even further. Really nice to grab that wherever we can, and this is a huge source of that. Most other sources are kind of like in the single-digit range. Make sure for your rings and your belt that you use the Turbulent Catalysts here to boost up the elemental damage modifiers on them, and then make sure on your amulet that you're using Tempering Catalysts to boost up the defense modifier to max out the energy shield that you're getting from it. As an anoint, I've got Ash, Frost, and Storm set up there for 30% increased damage and some increased damage of our shocks. Other good options would be kind of anything that you don't want to path over to on your tree. So Whispers of Doom if you need the additional curse. Defiled Forces if you want to run that tech, which we'll talk about later. Safeguard would be a good one. It's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to go over to Safeguard. Similar as the Mountain could be used. And when you're leveling up, Cruel Retort can be used too, because that's pretty far away. So we've talked about our uniques. Next we'll talk about the armor. So for the 3 non-body slots, you want to look for hybrid armor pieces. So the highest base for the helmet is this Divine Crown. The highest base for boots are Paladin boots, and the highest base for gloves are Paladin gloves. On your gloves, make sure you end up with Dexterity as a suffix. We'll talk about that in a bit. But to craft these, where do I have it set up? Basically, you want to use a Deafening Essence of Woe. So looking at these, you can see the helmet adds 52 minimum, and the other armors add 38 minimum. And looking at the mods here, I've got one of these crowns rolled up with the Beatified modifier. That's the flat modifier you get on hybrid pieces at tier 1. You can see that that maxes out at 48 energy shield. So 48 from the natural mod versus a guaranteed 52 from an essence means that we can just spam essences and be getting more energy shield out of our gear than this non-guaranteed mod would give us. So it's easier to do and gives us more. What you're spamming for, you're looking for the Inspired mod on each of these 3 pieces, which is the highest tier of increased armor and energy shield. And then you want to look for a hybrid modifier in the 3rd prefix slot that gives you increased armor and energy shield, as well as some stun and block recovery. So get that set up on your helmet and your gloves. And then on your boots, try and do something similar, but get movement speed as your 3rd one instead of that hybrid mod. I've got to redo these boots. I made these with a recombinator before I noticed and kind of knew about the essence tech. Once you've got those prefixes set up, you're going to use Eldritch currency to re-roll the suffixes, basically. So if you look at an Eldritch currency, it says if the Eater of Worlds is dominant, re-roll suffix modifiers. And for the annulment, again, remove a suffix, and the exalt, add a suffix. So you'll just apply a Eldritch Ichor to your item, and then you can use those 3 to re-roll them. I finally got this triple T1 Twilight Regalia to replace my kind of starter armor. So I'll just demonstrate. You can apply a blue Ichor. Now it has a dominant Eater of Worlds influence and no other influence, and we can just re-roll the suffixes without affecting anything really. That re-roll really sucked. I only got 10% cold resistance. So it will take a few of those to get modifiers you want. The modifiers you're looking for when you're re-rolling are basically intelligence, because intelligence boosts your energy shield some more. Elemental resistances, any high rolls to help cap off your resistances. And then, as I mentioned, you want to get some dexterity on your gloves, because there's really no other source of dexterity in the build, and you need some of it for your Deadly Ailments support. As well as your Malevolence gem. I think that, yeah, that does need dexterity. On the body armor, it's good to start off with this Sacred Chainmail or similar hybrid base. You can get a pretty good amount of energy shield from it. It's got 600 on this one, and a pretty reasonable armor. And it's much easier to color as a starter item. So coloring is based on the stat requirements of the gear. So this hybrid one requires 173 each of strength and intelligence, meaning that when you use a chromatic orb on it, it's got a high chance to roll a red or a blue socket based on those stat requirements. The Twilight Regalia requires almost 300 intelligence, so when you use a chrome on it, it's almost always going to roll all 6 blues. You've got to use some advanced techniques, including omens and harvest crafting to get white sockets on it and make it usable. So eventually I'm going to transfer over to this Twilight Regalia when I finish crafting it as my next upgrade. Let's have a look at the Path of Building real quick. So skill tree, I've got it set up with the Blackflame setup that we'll talk about right now. This has me clocking in at just under 20 million DPS, and then that's not including the Mercenary, so that won't be including the Malevolence from the Watcher's Eye either. So adding that Malevolence effect and the damage there, I'm going to have much higher damage all told. Having a look at the default fire damage setup, it's very, very similar. Oh, it's switched off onto the Golem. Go for Eviscerate in both waves. So that's coming in at 18 million damage there, and I'm just using a very basic configuration and calculation. I've got 50% shock, and then I think I have both curses being applied to the enemy. I'm not a real pro Path of Building person, so I might be missing something. I'm very basic with it. I will have these two POBs in the description if you want to look at and play around with. Just for reference though, if we... oh, we switched over. So if we go over to Eviscerate, and then if we change our body armor to the Twilight Regalia, we're at 1077 energy shield right now, and if we put in a 1200 Twilight Regalia, we go up over 1300. So, you know, 2.5, almost 3000 extra energy shield just from switching that chest piece, and we go up to almost 23 million damage, so pretty good upgrade to be making. So that's what's coming next. Now, I said we'd go over some variants. So looking at the kind of the main line here is the fire damage variant. So that will use a Polaric Devastation, and then you'll use 2 curses here, stacking Flammability and Elemental Weakness. You'll also be making the most of our exposures here, including the bonus exposure effect from Elementalist. This gives you the maximum reduction to enemy resistances, and yeah, you can apply the most damage to fire resistance that way by stacking all of those effects. I'm using a Blackflame variant, like I said earlier. So Blackflame is a different unique ring, it's this one right here. The important thing is enemies ignited by you take chaos damage instead of fire damage. So basically we scale our ignites as if they do fire damage, and then at the last step they just get mitigated and resisted by the enemy's chaos resistance instead. So with Blackflame we want to use the Despair Curse instead. It's 1 curse only, so we don't need to worry about Whispers of Doom or additional curses anywhere on our build, and we get a free link back that way. Blackflame does have the downside of reduced ignite duration on our enemies, but even in POB we're still getting, I think it was 3.6 ignite duration. If we come over here, not look at our Enduring Cry, look at our main skill instead. Yeah, so 3.5 seconds for our ignites, so still pretty good, and with a cooldown of 1.9, we'll be able to get plenty of ignites off on our enemies. Next variation to go over is, or tech I guess, is Defiled Forces over here. So this notable says that whenever we curse an enemy, it refreshes the duration of ignites, chills, and shocks on our enemies. So basically, we apply our Arcanist brand, it casts our curse, and then our curse refreshes the duration of all ailments so that they don't wear off. Our Arcanist brand lasts for 3 seconds when attached, so we have to keep reapplying it every 3 seconds, plus or minus 3.5 seconds for our ignites. We'll call it 5-6 seconds, but it will keep all of our ignites ticking down on the enemy. When we have multiple ignites on an enemy, the highest damaging one applies damage, and the others just kind of tick off and exist in the background, not doing anything. So it just gives us multiple different chances at landing that super high damage ignite. Last variant is the Energy Blade variant. So Energy Blade gives us, it converts our sword into this Energy Blade sword. I'll just equip it instead of Flame Dash here and turn it on real quick with Mouse 4, with Mouse 4. Where is my energy? There it is. So it converts us into an Energy Blade. You can see I've got the lightsaber there now. And you can see that my Energy Blade deals up to 2300 damage, which boosts my damage from, 68,000 cap up to 96,000 damage cap. So it's much higher damage, but it comes at the cost of debuffing our energy shield by almost half. So let's get rid of that and have a better look at it. So Energy Blade applies 50% less maximum energy shield, and then the quality from it gives us 1% per 4 quality of less energy shield lost to that debuff. So we want to pair that with some quality boosting effects like the Enhance support, which gives us 8% quality per level, and maybe the Ashes of the Stars amulet, which gives quality to all of our skill gems. So Energy Blade is a skill gem. It'll get quality from Ashes. Make sure that you match up your extra quality and your corrupted quality to get you another 4 breakpoint. So I think you want a 29% quality Ashes to go with 23% there. The downside of using Ashes is that you lose a lot of energy shield from your Whispers of Infinity. You can see unequipping it there was worth about 1,000 energy shield. And you have to start worrying about mana again. So you'll have to put some more points on your tree over here and get more reservation efficiency on your aura skills. You'll also have to watch out for map modifiers like cannot regen mana, and find a way to deal with that like a mana flask. Speaking of map mods, let's talk about those now. I've got my maps over here. So the ones you don't want to run are enemies have a chance to avoid elemental ailments, because obviously if you're igniting them and you can't ignite them, you can't do anything. Players have reduced chance to block, if I spell it right. Players have less armor and reduced chance to block. Those come together, so you don't want to run that because you can't deal damage if you're not blocking attacks and counterattacking them. And then T17s, T16.5s have monsters get additional block chance. That's kind of annoying to run because they'll block a lot of your attacks and you just won't do anything against them. You could pick up the attack mastery, where's that right here, but it costs a lot of points to get. I'm not sure where else there are. No, there's no other options. They're not really nearby. Yeah, one's up there. That's another 4-pointer. So, and the attack mastery, the stuff leading up to it, gives you nothing useful, really. So yeah, avoid those map modifiers. You can run everything else. You can run all the altars. I think that's it. Flasks. Let's talk flasks. Roll them for gain charges when you are hit, because you want to get hit a lot, so that'll give you a lot of hits. And then just look for any useful suffixes. So block and stun recovery is nice to have, movement speed, more armor, and reduced effective curses on us. All nice to have. So let's put this stuff away, and then let's run a map to demonstrate it. Here, I'll just put a few of them away. I've got a map set up with some breaches, so hold on. I don't want that. Let's bring that just in case we need it, and we'll bring the Expert Retaliation support. So we've got a map set up, we're running a breach wheel, we'll craft breach on it, we've got a bunch of breach scarabs, and this will show you the clear on it basically. Oh, sorry, before we go in, I guess I should talk about Mercenaries. Mercenaries are new this patch and new this league. We're not sure if they'll be around in the future. I'm basically using them as buff bots and aura bots. So like I said, you want to have determination and malevolence, and you want to find a mercenary who can support you with one of those. So I have a blade biter who has malevolence, and then I've stacked him up with some malevolence effect weapons. And before that, I had this strength-based striker who has determination. There's a lot of other variants of determination mercs. You can get any one of them. Look for put a Calm's Binding on them, because that converts some of the enemy's damage to fire, so that again that damage just disappears. And then yeah, Perkle's Toe is very, very good to put on your mercenaries. As a nearby ally, your damage with hits will be lucky, so you'll roll your hit damage twice, so you'll get 2 chances at getting a high damage ignite at this max 78,000 range. I know we're not scaling hits, but the lucky effect still applies. I just set this guy up recently, and because he has kind of less recovery and less tankiness than the strength guy, I stuck a Defiance of Destiny on him to make him not die as much. So I do notice that I get a lot more low roll ignites that feel bad. Aside from that, I've got this guy set up with Garb of the Ephemeral so that nearby enemies aren't dealing criticals, and nearby allies are not slowed down, losing action speed. I'm hoping that this will help me avoid those drowning orbs better. And then I've just got a basic like Leer cast, some resist rings, and these gloves that give him a chance to wither. I forgot to mention in this Blackflame version, we do want to get withers on the enemy. We can see withers don't expire, so it's pretty easy to stack up to the max number of withers. So try and use Withering Touch. Consider using the Withering Step. All of those apply some withers. This guy I had set up for rarity with a Gravebind and rarity set up, and then I had some additional curses on his other gear when I was using the fire setup. I don't think the Gravebind is very good because it's nearby enemies, and our range is so big that a lot of our kills are not nearby to anyone, so we're just not getting that rarity. Lastly, if you just want to go around fast, you can use a Kineticist. I was using her more with my other character. And yeah, I forgot to mention the Eldritch Implicits. The most important one is the gloves here. We want to get the ignites spread to other enemies from Searing Exarch, so just keep re-rolling with red orbs to get that. And then if you're playing one of the fire versions, you want to get the your hits inflict exposure here. If you don't have that yet, if you're earlier on, then you can just run a Wave of Conviction in your Arcanist brand. As long as you make sure that it has highest damage type of fire, then that'll be applying fire exposure for you. On your chainmail and your body armor and your helmet, you want to get physical damage taken as chaos from the Eater of Worlds. Because we're immune to chaos, that just disappears, that fizz damage. And then the Searing Exarch, just look for anything that's useful as a prefix. There's a few options. I think you can get Curse Effect on helmets, and I forget what the body armor options are. I've got buffs from golems. I think there's maximum resistances too. On the boots, we can get Ignite Steel damage faster from Eater, so make sure you get that. And then anything that helps, anything that you need from the Searing Exarch. Like I said, I'm going with Storm Shroud and a chance to avoid being shocked there for my elemental immunity. Okay, let's do the map. So we'll load in. I've got my Expert Retaliation on, and then we just run around. We look for enemies, we run into them, they attack us, and then we can eviscerate. It takes a little while for my graphics to load in, sorry about that. But we'll just wait for them to attack, and then eviscerate, and everything dies. It's pretty great. You can just walk around. It's very chill, very easy. Walk around, get all the things. There's a boss down here. Did we kill him? No, he's still there. Pick that up. Pick that up. Go over here. You can smite while your eviscerate is on cooldown. It's pretty natural. You can put your brand out if you need to against tanky enemies, but I'm at the point here where none of this is really tanky enough to need it. Hit all the things. Hit all the bad guys. The boss all the way over here. That's tall. Now he'll burn down. And there's another one over here. Bridge. Another tall. So we'll get both of them. I missed the Evolving Shrine. That's sad. We'll get another breach here. Tons of stuff blocking, and it's very safe. My health is not in damage. Not in danger, I should say, at any point here. These are proliferating way far away. Wait for our eviscerate and use it. move on. You can run right into the middle of the packs. You can blow up everybody. It's pretty great. These breaches, just watching, you know, a whole screen of enemies disappear. Like that. Ooh, divine. Where's the boss? He's down here. Sheila. She hits a lot when she cyclones, so she can sometimes deal a little bit of damage, but it's not that risky. And it's pretty easy to just ignite her and walk away. Lots of loot. Should make this more strict. Another boss over here. Walk around, eviscerate. Very easy. Very relaxed. Another boss over this way. Okay, he's gone. Screen of enemies. They all blow up and disappear. Another neat thing is the Blackflame. It makes the enemies burn purple, so they turn purple very briefly before they die. I mean, these breach guys are already pretty purple, so it's tough to see, but you will see it. Like these guys, they're all purple. Kind of neat. We got that, we got that, we got that, we got that. Look at those things. We'll blow those guys up. You can see how far the range is. Blow everybody up. Put a brand on it. Blow him up. Something tanked over there. We'll go back and get it in a second. Shield charge around. Melt everybody down. Oh, it's a Sephiroth card from my scry. That's great. And the map bosses are gone. The map's complete. I didn't even see them. So, oh, one more breach. So yeah, that's the build. Very chill. Very good clear. Decent bossing. You do need to wait to get hit, so some bosses are kind of cringe. Waiting for them to attack you, waiting for Cyrus to wind up a die beam against you or something and not dodging it. Just feels a bit weird. I'm pretty impressed by the Retaliation build. I thought it was going to be a lot cringier and worse than it was, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty good. Definitely worth checking out and worth playing if you haven't. So yeah, give it a look, and I would consider Retaliation builds in the future. Let me know if this was interesting to you. Leave a like. Let me know what else you'd like to see, if you want to know more about how ignites are scaled or anything else, or more about the crafting. And yeah, talk to you later. Peace.